is Mariam Khan. I sit on the board for the CAIR-Florida Executive Council.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Saba Ali, and I also sit on the CAIR-Florida Board Executive Council.
We'd like to go ahead and acknowledge all of the organizations that came out to support us today. We have, of course, the CAIR-Florida representation team. We have the Office of Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith. We have the Office of Congressman Darren Soto, Unite Here, Local 737, the American Muslim Democratic Caucus, the Muslim Women's Organization.
We also have Mi Familia Vota, the Young Democrats of Orange County, Florida Immigrant Coalition, Farm Worker Association of Florida.
As well as Mark Pafford from the former minority leader for Florida legislator and the Scott Randolph tax collector.
We also have joining us Jobs for Justice.
I'd like to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, Rasha Mubarak, who is the Central Florida Regional Coordinator for CAIR-Florida.
Thank you, ladies. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Inscribed are these words in our Statue of Liberty. In just days into the new administration, we have seen a wave of discriminatory, anti-immigrant, anti-refugee, anti-Muslim executive orders and policies trying to criminalize a people in an attempt to galvanize the American people. On Monday, January 30th, CAIR National filed a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the recent Trump's Muslim bans executive orders. CAIR-Florida's Chief Executive Director, Hassan Shibly, who's in Tampa, is one of the over 20 plaintiffs named in the lawsuit. It is claimed that Trump's executive orders violate the first freedom of religion and Fifth Amendments violate due process of the U.S. Constitution. U.S. Constitution executive orders were intended as Trump's enactment of his campaign promise to execute a Muslim ban. This Muslim ban order came as part of a series of orders stigmatizing an ethnic and religious minority. First, the Wall executive order presenting Hispanics as a safety threat to the nation, followed by the Muslim ban order stigmatizing Muslims. We see tens of thousands of citizens in the streets and airports worried which minority will be persecuted next. Excuse me. CAIR-Florida is activated in the streets and now in the courts defending justice and equality for all Americans and Muslims here and abroad. In just days into the new administration, we have seen a wave of anti-executive. These executive orders are just political theater at the expense of not only our civil liberties, but our national security that he claims he's trying to protect. Feeding into and even adding recruitment material for the extreme groups overseas and abroad. Trump is in a position to trample over civil liberties, jeopardizing and undermining safety for all. Islamophobia was once in the fringes of society and has made it to mainstream. We have an we have a very rigorous immigrant and refugee system in place. It's the safest and the most screened in the world. Of the almost 750,000 immigrants or refugees that came into this country post 9/11, only 2 of them were tied to any terrorist charges that were tied overseas. Immigrants and refugees were why this country was built. Muslims were here in the plight, and the first time the birth of the United States happened, there was a Muslim presence. This isn't Muslims, immigrants, this isn't new. This is what makes America great. And I'm honored to be standing with so many of our allies and partners that are impacted and not impacted by this, and we stand in solidarity together. Thank you. Well, there'll be further questions after.
Next, we have Alex Barrios, who is joining us on behalf of Congressman Darren Soto.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Barrios, and I'm the District Director for Congressman Darren Soto. Congressman Darren Soto believes that this action by the President is unnecessary, unconstitutional, and un-American. He will do everything in his power as your representative to overturn this action. He's currently in D.C. and apologized for not being able to be here, but he is working on the SOLVE Act, legislative action that seeks to ensure this discriminatory order is overruled and faith and religious freedom is restored in the United States of America. We spent 9 hours this past Sunday at the Orlando International Airport working to secure the release of 3 people who were unlawfully held under this order. They were 3 green card holders who should not have been held by the Customs and Border Protection. As of now, our office is working with Customs and Border Protection and the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority to make sure that no one else is held unlawfully. If anyone you know is flying into the Orlando International Airport from one of the 7 affected countries with a passport from one of those 7 countries, please reach out to our office directly at 202-225-9889. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. I'd like to go ahead and introduce Ida S Qamani, who is from the Office of Florida House Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you. My name is Ida Pascal S Qamani. I serve as Chief of Staff for the Office of Florida House Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith, District 49. The representative sends his regrets, and I have the privilege of delivering some remarks on behalf of our office. I echo the remarks of many of my colleagues here, and it's truly incredible to see this community come together and see marginalized groups come together to stand up for equality and justice. President Trump's executive order is an attack not just on our Muslim immigrant and refugee community, but an attack on our basic American values. Our district is home to diverse families working hard to achieve the American dream, along with 5 colleges and universities representing and serving international students from across the world. We know of 1 PhD student who has been barred from re-entering the United States, and another almost 223 students at UCF and 25 Valencia College students from these affected countries have been warned not to leave the country to visit their family home. As a first-generation Iranian American, my family is also directly harmed by this ban. Currently, my 84-year-old grandmother is prohibited from making her annual trip to the United States. This is a trip she's been making my entire life, helping to raise me and my siblings. I myself am barred now from going to the country where most of my family still lives. This is not the America my Iranian parents immigrated to. This ban is unjust, ineffective, and unconstitutional. We thank CAIR-Florida for their critical leadership during this time. Our office proudly stands with our Muslim, immigrant, undocumented, and refugee communities. Please know that all marginalized groups stand with you as you stand with us. We're united in this fight for justice and equality. Thank you.
I'd like to now introduce Judith Pascal from Unite Here, Local 737.
Good afternoon. My name is Judith Pascal, and I'm here today with Unite Here, Local 737. We represent over 20,000 people at Walt Disney World, and we're here today to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the community who are being affected by this unjust ban. Thank you.
Next, we have Nooreen Haider. She joins us from American Muslim Democratic Caucus.
Thank you. The American spirit shines strongly through those in search of a better life here, working for it, building it, helping our nation grow stronger day by day. We are a nation of immigrants. Diversity makes our nation stronger, not weaker. We call on all elected officials and the American people to stand up against the ban and against all hate, discrimination, and phobias. Thank you.
Now we have Fatima Hassan, and she joins us from the Muslim Women's Organization.
Good afternoon. My name is Fatima Hassan, and I am the president of the Muslim Women's Organization. I wanted to start off just by sending my heartfelt prayers and condolences to all the lives that have been lost recently in Canada and honestly all over because of hate and violence and just everything negative that we see in the world today. And on behalf of the Muslim Women's Organization, I just wanted to say that we stand in solidarity with everybody that's been affected by the recent executive orders and by the recent Islamophobia and hate crimes, a lot of those being against women, Muslim women in particular. And finally, I just wanted to say that we stand with people that are separated from their families and their loved ones, people like Ida and people like a lot of our members in our own organization that really can't see their grandmothers, their sisters, their brothers because of these unjust and unconstitutional laws. And finally, I wanted to thank CAIR, for CAIR-Florida in particular, for always being there to amplify our voices. A lot of times Muslim women's voices are not heard, and CAIR makes sure that they always are. Thank you.
I'd like to now introduce Esteban Garces from Mi Familia Vota.
Morning or good afternoon. My name is Esteban Garces with Mi Familia Vota. I just wanted to be here today in solidarity with CAIR and all of those who are affected by what's happening during these cloudy and tumultuous times. Walls are being built right now, maybe not physically, but they are attempting to be built in another way. But they're walls that we will gladly tear down. They won't separate us. With very little notice recently, we saw Americans, both documented and not, heeding a call to their patriotic duty to defend the Constitution. We saw this, and families at these airports, to protect their distinct vision of what America is. And right now we see these two distinct visions of what this country holds. One, joined by the folks here in this room to defend our values, our Constitution, our freedoms, everything that we hold dear, and the other, led by conservatives, unfortunately, who are set on undercutting the progress and civility that we've made, undercutting morals and ethics, undercutting a history that we as Americans can be proud of. This is a test of our strength and our resolve, and it's one that we plan on passing. I wanted to thank CAIR for their leadership on this, the elected officials present, their offices, the organizations and allies present as well. We will continue in this struggle, and we will be victorious. Thanks.
Next, we have Robert Walters from the Young Democrats of Orange County.
Hello, my name is Robert Walters. I'm the president of Young Democrats of Orange County. We represent all Democrats ages 14 to 40 in Orange County, and we are here today to stand with CAIR and the Muslim community in Orange County and across the United States. What the current administration did by signing this executive order is unconstitutional, it's unethical, and it's completely immoral. And we will stand, we will protest, and we will resist this administration, and we will make sure that no person in this country is discriminated against based purely on their religion or their origin of the country that they came from. And we are here to stand with our community.
We now have Isabella Xenon, who's joining us from the Florida Immigration Coalition.
Good afternoon. My name is Isabella Xenon. I'm with the Florida Immigrant Coalition, and we're here to stand in solidarity with our Muslim sisters and brothers. I wanted to say two things. One is to actually bomb countries, create chaos, humanitarian crises, and then lock them up and not allow them to go to any place to look for refuge is not foreign policy. It's actually a horror movie. And I am quoting someone who posted that on Facebook and actually summarizes how I really feel about this. So that applies to the 7 countries that have been banned from the United States. It's like it's been said here, unconstitutional. It's also anti-Christian. So I don't know who anybody can say that the Christian and support these kind of executive orders. The second thing I wanted to say is that this government has proven to be anti-life, not pro-life. So you can't be anti-planet, anti-women, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, anti-Native American, anti-Black Lives Matter, and then say that you're pro-life. So really, what's happening in this country right now is a call for everyone to unite and resist against xenophobia, hate, Islamophobia, which is really deep in our culture and in some even religions to be preached and promoted. So we're here today to show our solidarity and denounce these executive orders. Thank you.
Next, we have Jeannie, economist, and she joins us from the Farm Workers Association of Florida.
Good afternoon. The Farm Workers Association of Florida stands in solidarity with our brothers and sisters here in this room and around the city and around the country. People only have to go as far as their grocery store to see the contributions that farm workers make to this country. The majority of people that harvest our food every day are immigrants. Farm workers are mostly immigrants from other countries, and anyone that eats in this country owes a debt of gratitude to immigrants. Immigrants are the backbone of the economy of this country, no matter what some people in political leadership say. And so it's important to recognize, understand, value the contributions that immigrants make. So we are here to support our Muslim brothers and sisters and all immigrants in this country, because the Farm Workers Association of Florida stands for liberty and justice, not for some, but for liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Again, I think my brothers and sisters of what we like to call in Central Florida as our movement family. Please give them a round of applause for everyone coming in last minute. A lot of us helped mobilize the rally that was held at the Orlando International Airport that Alex had mentioned earlier, and we stood together and we continue to stand together. This is only the beginning of the resistance, and we will now further open it up for Q&A.
Yes, what are you hoping to achieve with this lawsuit that was filed in Virginia as a whole? What are you asking for, and what are you hoping it will achieve?
We're asking for these executive orders to be stopped and to put a ban on this ban, because it is the constitutionality of it does not exist, and it goes against everything that the values in America stands on.
Some of the plaintiffs, 27 are on there. Were any of them helped, and who are these plaintiffs filing them?
A lot of these plaintiffs are activists, lawyers, representatives of the different civil rights organizations, and a lot of them are CAIR representation across the country.
Yes, there's been several people who defend this say that one, like they oh, it's only temporary, and two, it's not a Muslim ban, it's not all Muslim countries. What would you have to say to those things people try to say to defend this?
Regardless if it's 2 hours or 1 week or years, this is offensive, insulting, and it's separating families, and that it also sends a negative message, where it sends a violent message. It gives bigotry a green light to cause harm on anyone that looks identifiably Muslim, or even, and again, our national security. And your second question was?
Well, yeah, that was just one question, two different things. It was that it was temporary and that it was not all Muslims.
Right.
Yeah, there's only 7 countries, and there were several other.
Regardless of the vague language, it is targeting the 7 majority Muslim countries, and at any time, any country can be added. And this isn't about foreign policy. This is about a mass deportation of people based on religion, and it's discriminatory. And we're actually advising people from any Muslim majority country that are visa or green card holders to consult with an immigration attorney before leaving the country or even returning to the country.
While the majority of the folks on the lawsuit, as you mentioned, are civil rights folks, people who represent Muslim groups, there are folks like students,
absolutely,
who really worry, I guess, about what the next 90 days or whatever days are going to bring. For those people who are students, I mean, what do you say to them? They're awfully afraid of what's going to happen with their educational future, not to mention their families.
Absolutely. The fear is real. I mean, Islamophobia has been real. He's kept a promise to ensuring that he implements this. We are advising that people consult with immigration attorneys, whether it's at CAIR-Florida or anyone that you know, to not leave this country if you are a green card holder or a visa card holder, because we want to be able to ensure that you are able to stay here legally. And if any of your visa is about to expire, we are asking that you do consult with an immigration attorney.
And on the flip side of that, I would be remiss even as a reporter not to ask. Trump's idea here is to have some time to try to look and see who's coming into the country, who's not coming into the country. You obviously made a statement off the top that out of the thousands who are coming in,
right,
they're arrested, whatever. But your feeling still, as we look at what's happened in Florida, as we look at what's happened across the nation, do you understand any of his, or empathize with any of what he's trying to do?
I mean, I empathize with any kind of horror, right? Whether it was Orlando or wherever it was, you are most likely to die from your clothes being set on fire than by an immigrant in this country. And like I mentioned earlier, 2 of the 750,000 post 9/11 immigrants were related to terrorist charges overseas. So we have to take it back to the drawing boards. We once used to be a country that held our president and elected officials accountable for the words that they said. So they need to start fact checking. And we also, elected officials, have a responsibility of the community following their lead. And then if you can stand, like we had from Carlos Guillermo Smith and Darren Soto saying this is not okay, that's what we need our president and the White House to do.
Rasha, you mentioned, what we've seen here in Orlando. We stood up right after Pulse. There are people here that feel like we do need that sense of security, who might be supporting this ban, especially right here, because they have that fear. What would you say to those folks?
I think we have a great set of law enforcement here in Central Florida, from OPD, Orange County Sheriff's Office, and the federal agencies, and they did everything in their power to prevent that. I mean, when we see what happened in the Black church, this is something that's every group of people are facing, and why is it trying to be capitalized on someone's religion?
Yes, what would you say is the correct way to approach these kind of complex immigration issues? Obviously, you're not satisfied with what the administration is doing. What would you say is the right way to go about these kind of address immigration issues?
We already have a very rigorous screen system in place. It's already in place.
It is. You don't want anything else to change at all. That's just, you want it to stay the way it is.
It's been working out quite fine for our country, and it's actually been a very beneficial for our country. Like our sister from the Farm Workers Association said, that it's the biggest contributing factor here in the United States. That's something that we cannot deny.
Does the time limit make any difference, Raja? We're talking about 120 days to keep refugees in the country, and then another 3 months from those from predominantly Muslim nations. Does that time make a difference, or is it just all out the box?
I mean, it's all out the box, but absolutely, I think every minute counts. When you've maybe an Iraqi refugee from 1992, and you've applied for the appropriate paperwork to get to this country, and finally are granted access to come to this country, to only be denied. I think that people don't understand that these are people that are seeking refuge of war-torn countries that have been trying to get out for years. This isn't something that they applied to yesterday.
And the piggyback on that, what is your greatest fear if all of these folks, and you've got a dozen of them, various groups represented, and this lawsuit do not effectively change what has become an executive order? What is your greatest fear?
I mean, I just fear the backlash of what will happen to not just our community, but our national security. But I think every single person in this room and beyond will continue to fight.
Can you tell me about the number of students in it that you had mentioned? I'm sorry if I can get that. It said 23 UCF students.
Yeah, the most recent report we have is that 223 UCF students have been notified recommended not to leave the country, and 25 Valencia College students. And we understand there's one PhD student from UCF barred from entering the United States from Iran. And if I could just take a moment to speak on the issue of Pulse in this community, I was very involved with Rasha and many folks on this in this room with our response to the Pulse tragedy. And what we as a community did is what we always do. We stood together. We did not let hate divide us, and we didn't let misguided fear dictate our behavior, because we know the Muslim community is one that practices peace, is a community that many of our neighbors are part of, many of our families are part of, and targeting this community with our fear and our hate is misguided and, quite frankly, unproductive. It would lead to more homegrown terrorism, and we know that the solution is through love and compassion. And again, we have one of the most rigorous refugee vetting systems in the world. And the United States lets a very, very small amount of these folks in, and we do a very good job at going through and vetting these folks. And we can't, Orlando as a community will always stand united, and we did so in following the Pulse tragedy, and we will do so now.
And have we heard of anyone else being held or detained since this weekend? You know?
The ones I've heard of are of the three, two of them being Syrian and the Iranian.
But since Sunday, have we heard of anybody else having trouble with you?
No, we haven't heard of anybody yet. I've given out our contact information for anybody who's flying into Orlando, but there wasn't anybody yesterday or as of this morning.
Okay.
Any more protests planned?
I think so. I would keep it out for social media, and I think I've seen one being mobilized. There's a lot of different call to action, so we're asking our community to come out and stand with everyone in solidarity.
Lastly, CAIR-Florida's own president is part of this lawsuit.
Nihad Awad.
Yeah, what, can you just speak, I guess, he's probably in Tampa at this time, just...
Hassan Shibly is our executive director of CAIR-Florida, and Nihad Awad is a director of CAIR National. So which one, are you speaking about Hassan Shibly in Tampa?
Florida,
Yes.
yeah, he's the one.
Yes, he's an attorney, and he's our executive director for the whole state of CAIR-Florida. We have 4 chapters: Tampa, Orlando, South Florida, and Panama City. So he is one of the plaintiffs, and he's ready to take it to the court along with the other plaintiffs. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there a list of the names of the speakers?
Sure. We can actually probably type it and send it to everyone. So I like that.
We're touching each other.